This is day 7 of the November 92 7-day retreat in Springwater. This question came up several times since yesterday, once in a group and also in private meetings. Is there something to sitting a lot, becoming familiar with it, with sitting quietly, with sitting motionlessly? Going to retreat over time? Is there something that happens over time with doing this that will also manifest in our daily life? Being more aware in our daily life, less reactive. There with what's happening in oneself, in one's relationship with others. And one has heard many different opinions about it. That of course it needs a lot of practice to come to awareness. The more practice, the better. The more sitting, the clearer. And one has heard the opposite, that this is nothing that can be practiced. Awareness is either there or it is not there. So why sit in the first place? If it is something that happens on its own, why make the effort to sit when I would rather do something else? This question is with us all the time, isn't it? And we want answers as we are trained to want, to have definitive answers from someone who knows, so that we can dispose ourselves accordingly. I will do more sitting if somebody says, yes, this will lead to this. And if somebody says, I don't know, or find out yourself, I may not sit. I may not even try to find out for myself. Because again, I go by the words that this is something that happens on its own. Awareness of the kind we're talking here, which is without self-reference, without self-division or self-enclosure, without a center. That awareness has no cause. Find me a cause and we'll look at it. I'm open to argument or to discussion. I haven't found a cause. We may think retroactively, what did I do before this moment happened? Or the moment before or years before, and then draw a conclusion. But that's thinking. At the moment, we can all play with that. At the moment of coming to, waking up to the fact that there's been a million thoughts in the mind, all fantasy, fear or pleasure. Did we want to wake up to this, or did it happen? And then we say, oh, I wanted to become aware of this. Or, why did I think so much? Or, what did I do to become aware? Then thinking starts in to try to make the connections. But it couldn't even come in to make these connections if there hadn't been a moment of waking up. If there hadn't been this moment of waking up, the dream would have continued. So hearing somebody talk about this, there may be the feeling, well, why do any quiet sitting at all if it is not a cause of anything? If it has no results? We talk about that a lot, to sit without expecting results. But it's different from making this into an argument. Well, if there are no results, why sit? It's completely different. Do you feel that? To sit and come in touch with this charged organism that expects a result. To feel that. To wonder about it, to listen to the sounds of expectation. That's stepping out of expectation into awareness of expectation. And in that awareness, there's not just the sound of expectation, of enlightenment hitting me any moment, or whatever the expectation may be, but there may also be the sound of the wind, sound of the breath. It's the same thing, isn't it? So what do we say to this question which comes up? Can we look for ourselves? The whole thing of sitting. I don't even want to call it a process. The word process is used a lot, but that already establishes in the mind something that is, I don't know. I don't use the word process. Maybe I do at times. This whole sitting quietly, what is it all about? Sitting quietly without moving. We move so much in our daily non-sitting life. So many movements which are not even functional. They're nervous movements. They have been incorporated, as it were, to maybe ward off some anxiety. Moving back and forth, or drumming with the fingers, or tapping with a foot, or where the hands are around the mouth, or scratching one's head. And we're not aware of it most of the time. It's part of our makeup. We may rationalize it, but in sitting quietly, the urge to move and the absence of moving may bring to the fore the anxiety which it is covering up, the habitual movement, the fear, whatever there may be. Or maybe just the security of habit and the assumed security of habit, because if one doesn't drum the fingers or have the hand over the mouth or whatever one may be doing, it's amazing. It's not necessary. When there can be an open being with all of our urges, letting them come into awareness, letting them be felt, listened to, seen, touched, without doing anything about it. one is sitting quietly. It's not a forced thing. It's an inquiry, trying to find out about ourselves in this most unusual of modes, namely quietness. Just mentioning one thing, but there's everything to be present with quietly. It's so amazing and so different from our daily life, in which we're talking, shattering, squirming, bracing, hiding, speeding, distracting, doing. And suddenly, quietness with people who are also quiet. There's something nice about that, being together in quietness. I don't say it has to be this way. Most of the time when we be alone in quietness, but every once in a while to share this with each other. We share a lot of things with each other. We eat together, go to entertainment together, talk together, work together, make love together. Why not be quiet together? We've recently started it again in Springwater after this was totally dropped, having a scheduled, unscheduled time, untimed sitting. Not many people are there, but it's nice coming in here and here. In the darkness, it's just the exit signs give enough light. Somebody here, somebody there, somebody coming in or going out. It's amazing that we can be with each other quietly, listening to the wind or the gunshots, and our shared breathing. And whatever else is shared, all the thoughts, fantasies, worries, hopes, stories going on, and maybe here and there an absence of all of that. The question was, in doing that, is there more chance for quietness happening because one is doing it and has been doing it? Is there more chance for quieting down just by having done it, by doing it? Find out. Don't ask me. Because it's all right to ask me, we can talk about it. Don't go by what I say. Find out for yourself. You can't find out if you don't do it. And to leave it exploratory and light, not weighted down. Some people tell me that they used to be so compulsively addicted to their sitting that if they didn't manage to sit one day, they thought doom would befall them. Because I didn't sit this morning, and if one thinks this way, one is on the road to doom. Somebody asked me in a meeting, reporting that recently she's not been sleeping too well, a lot of worries, a lot of things to do in the daily life, and one may just be about to fall asleep or have just fallen asleep, and the thought arises of what one needs to do, and what happens to the sleepiness? Of course, it's gone. The thought elicits whatever the body needs to do this job that one is thinking about, and the body doesn't work on jobs while sleeping, except keeping this body alive. That's enough. someone is all ready to go, and I commiserated with this person. Happens to me too. Thinking of something that needs to be done, and the energy is there to do it, and one needs sleep too. So what do you do? She said, what do you do then? I just may lie all night long awake with this thought, and of course that doesn't remain with one thought. Other thoughts, and maybe anxiety over something that may not turn out well or hasn't turned out well. What does one do? One has to get up the next morning, be at work. I'm just looking at what I do or don't do when this happens. First of all, it's good not to worry too much about the sleep, because that worry also sets going the chemicals, which are anti-sleep. Worry means to the body, watch out, there's danger. Don't go to sleep. And I found from experience that here and there, not sleeping a whole lot is not too hurtful. There's energy still in the morning. If it happens too often, then one may be tired during the day or maybe get sick. I don't know. But I do, in fact, worry less about not getting sleep. To just lie there, if one feels like continuing to lie there, and be with whatever was aroused in the body by that thought, completely. Feel it out and realize how one doesn't want to feel an anxiety or a pain. And because one has found out the resistance, one has felt it, come upon it, it doesn't need to continue. One can be with whatever one has called anxiety or what pain. Just be that, without no escape necessary. And then the thoughts don't keep filtering in because one is with the body, feeling it, not running away, not escaping, which is a very calming, wholesome way of being. Another thing that is going on these days, it's really possible to not know. How is it possible to not know? I don't know how it's possible, but it is. To really not know is a state of the brain and body. Which denies, or not forcefully, not repressively, but not knowingly, denies all further input. I don't know. Has that been learned? I don't know. It's the truth, though, isn't it? That all these thoughts that come up about we know what we should do, it's so limited. The vastness of this universe in motion and in stillness doesn't know. It's dark. And I've found over the last few years, when I wake up again in the morning or a few hours later, I fell asleep over this not knowing. Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes the thoughts are like a Niagara, or what they trigger in the body. What will happen? And you know those thoughts, we all do. And then, why lie around and toss back and forth? Why not get up and sit quietly? For me, it works better than lying down, to sit up, maybe comfortably on a sofa with some cushions in the back. Some people tell me they can be very open and attending and quiet lying down. For me, it doesn't work so well, particularly under those circumstances that we've just talked about. Thoughts arising about something I need to do or what will happen to my business, to my work, to the people, to the world. Then to take that along into the chair or sitting on the floor is amazing. In the middle of the night, just to be quiet with whatever upset there is, or agitation, turmoil, pain, and listen to it afresh. Not know about it. Of course, the knowledge may impose itself. I know what's going to happen. But listen to this input. What is it doing? The thoughts, the body, the wanting to do something about it, the reactions, the bracing. Listen to the whole thing. And maybe some lights coming through the window. The sounds of the night, some rafters creaking, and the breathing. Not try to get calm. And there's expectation with its agitation. But listen to the turmoil, to the sounds. Doing it one time, will it help the next time? Find out. Not assume anything one way or the other. Just work with it, play with it, live with it. And mustn't assume that it takes a lot of practice to sit quietly. That again sets up measurements and comparisons, myself with others and myself with myself. I can't expect much of myself now. I can only expect something of the future after I've done it for several years. It's also nonsensical. From having worked here in Springwater with people over quite a few years now, the amazing thing is that one can come without any experience and be right there at times, and come with a lot of experience and want to hold on to the practice and not sit quietly, openly in the presence of what is going on inside and out. So how can we be free of all the assumptions that rule our moment-to-moment living, in sitting and living and sleeping, walking? We're full of assumptions. Can we come upon them, discover them, and question them? Already discovering an assumption is something. And there, in contrast to what I said yesterday I was talking about making storylines about what has befallen me, what is happening to me, and with that I meant the emotionally loaded ways we're putting things about ourselves or others which arouses our anger or reaction. And to beware of this and wonder whether one has to continue with it if one comes upon it, because it's not helpful. It just keeps our turmoil going and our feelings of division. But to come upon an assumption and to sort of verbalize it for oneself is very helpful. Because a lot of our hidden assumptions are hidden. They're hidden. You don't see them. We're not aware of them. And verbalizing them even in talking with each other in dialogue or meetings, helping each other spell them out may bring them to light. And then one wonders, why believe in something like this? That is already freedom. That's the beauty of working together and talking together. Bringing to light what moves us darkly by needing to put it into words. It can be very dangerous to say, well, let's rather not talk. Let's not use words. No thoughts. The stuff then goes on in a hidden way. We all know that. We have all, not all, but most of us have practiced trying to cut off thought. Somebody just mentioned it yesterday in a meeting, having really learned to cut off thought with a practice and not being aware of all the hidden ideas, assumptions, imagery about oneself. That's why a lot of meditation teachers these days do not disparage talking therapy anymore, because it's often been through therapy that people have come upon some stuff that never revealed itself to them during spiritual practice. There's a lot of research right now and papers being written on therapy and spiritual training and the merits, and can they go together, are they the same, what are their differences, and so forth. You need to see something, whether it's therapy or sitting quietly for something to change. The seeing is the change. But if it's hidden and repressed or shunted through practice or concentration or absorption, how can you see it? There's not even seeing and absorption. That question came up yesterday too. Is absorption conducive to awareness? The person who was bringing it up said, usually you're praised for being absorbed. I'm a scholar, I'm studying, and when I write something, and tell people I've been so absorbed the last few days or few weeks in writing, others will nod and say, good. But he said, I don't think I'm very much aware at all. I'm very far away from what's going on in myself. By which we're not saying don't get absorbed. I'm not saying this kind of thing. But one may, being very absorbed in a project, something one loves doing, suddenly one may wake up to this whole absorption thing. And then the wind is blowing again. Which doesn't mean one drops the project. It's possible to do something and also be open to the wind. Birds, crows, or the breathing, or some nagging something that one hasn't allowed to also be there in its fullness. There's another thing that has come up a few times since I've been here in this retreat. I wrote it down a couple of days ago, the first time it came up. I would like to do selfless work for others. It's the only thing that seems worthwhile living for. And by doing selfless work for others, I also mean, said the person, something like this, working with that energy, that wholesome energy that one comes upon every once in a while, in a humanitarian way. But then, I also find that I have a real need to do this in order to feel at peace with myself. So I notice that there is a selfish motive again. It came up yesterday too in a group meeting, someone saying it seems so passive just to accept, I think the person said, to accept what is happening in the world, in Somalia, in the ghettos. War-torn countries. It seems so passive to accept it all, to live with it. Can't we do something about it? At least educate each other about what brings about strife and conflict and war and starvation. I would like to do selfless work for others. It seems the only thing that makes sense to me. Working with this wholesome energy. For others, not for myself. And yet, in questioning it honestly, letting it open up a bit, looking at what's underlying it, I find I want to be at peace with myself. If I can't tell myself that I'm doing selfless work for others, I feel guilty. I don't want to feel guilty. It's a very powerfully unpleasant burden to feel guilty about my selfishness. I don't want to feel guilty about selfishness. I want to be selfless. But is it really selfless if I want selflessness in order not to feel guilty and burdened? Doesn't the self-motive lurk in there? What are we going to do about this? The question is there. Is there even such a thing as working selflessly? No motive to feel better, be at peace, get rid of the guilt, just doing what comes up. And not separating oneself out either. Doing what comes up needs to be done. and watching openly for motives that crop up, and seeing them. Can one see a self-centered motive? I want to be at peace with myself, without being in conflict with it? Not starting the war right there? Being aware of the motive and not dropping the work, whatever one may be doing. Can we work and watch and wonder and discover and see and listen all at the same time? Not wait for the day that I'm all perfect, which is an idea sprung from the human brain. I don't know whether perfection exists in the universe. It's a human idea, because it's part of the universe. To do what one feels like doing today. Tomorrow I may feel like starting my own business. I've had enough of this selfless work. Happens to all of us. But today, that's what I'm into. I want to work with people of AIDS, or go to Somalia. There are people in Somalia. I'm always amazed when I see some little in-depth news coverage of some men and women there. You've never heard of them before, who just can't leave there because they want to hold these starving children. And in one newscast, you were even seeing some who had gotten better. The little belly was in, and there was a smile in the face. They were walking around. That's what these people needed to do. Whether it was to have peace of mind or not, I don't know. Were they watching that? I don't know. It's up to them. I'm not missionizing awareness. So when it goes to a hospice or goes to Somalia, open to what comes up, to what is discoverable in all of us if we listen and are honest and interested in motives, also in how do I feel after a while if I don't get gratitude. Often resentment comes up over having lost so much pay while other people have gotten rich. There's all kinds of stuff there. To let it trickle up out of the soil and watch the beads appear on the surface and look at them. Not to judge, to condemn, but to be aware, to be in touch with a human being. Not just the one is helping to get over starvation, but this human being who may be starved of insight. Can we live and work that way alone and together? Help each other discover if we are so inclined, not missionizing, going into the world to convert people. It has never worked. It's brought war and destruction and resentment. We were coming to that in that group meeting, even with this thing of trying to educate others. Who wants to be educated by someone else? Sometimes we do, and then it's all right if we're willing to find out and we find each other. And that's the amazing thing. We do find each other when we have similar interests, similar concerns, we find each other. It's the most amazing thing I haven't found out in this work, how we find each other. To share, to help each other, look and convey information. And is this way of working tied to any particular job? We think it is, because there's stereotypical ideas about what is selfless work and what is selfish work. Working for my own business is selfish, but working for the starving in Somalia is selfless. Let's not have any assumptions. Or discover the assumptions and question them. I don't want to have assumptions. I want to dive in directly. And having this particular job that I do, talking with many people talking to me, people who have their own business, who work with employees or with customers, often find it very amazing, that human contact. Learning from it, finding out about themselves and about each other. Discovering self-concern and wondering about it. I don't think we can categorize any of this. Can we say it doesn't matter what we're doing, there's always place for looking, listening, finding out, and a purifying going on? By purifying, I mean something that is discovered to be an obstacle, a hindrance, in clear light, does not have to continue. Without any effort, it withers away. One doesn't even notice it. Maybe later one realizes, oh, I'm not doing this anymore. Or I'm not feeling so important to myself anymore. I don't have to get all of this feedback to make myself feel important. It has withered because it seemed to be so useless, such a burden, such a barrier between you and me. I don't want any barriers. So how am I working right now? Not I should be working selfless, but how am I working now? What is the energy like? Divided, what's the vision? I want this, but I also want that. And the two collide or are incompatible. Let's start right here, this moment. Working alone, working with each other, in the kitchen or wherever. How are we with each other? Let's discover it freshly every moment and not mourn over how I was the last moment or yesterday. Let that go. It's irrelevant to what is going on right now. The other person may remember it, but maybe if we start freshly, these memories can also become irrelevant of what you were like yesterday. They are irrelevant, even though they come up. We can be here now, freshly present, no matter how cranky we were yesterday, or self-absorbed, or whatever. It happens to all of us. We are so alike. But usually we feel I'm worse than everybody else, or I'm better than anybody else. Such crazy assumptions. So if a so-called selfish motive reveals itself, can can one stay with the attention in which it was possible to see that rather than become all involved and reactionary to what it is one has discovered? I hate to be selfish, but be glad that you discovered it. That's where the preciousness lies, in a moment of awareness, of seeing, of listening, and being with what's true this instant. And beware not to get caught up in reacting to what it is we're seeing. Is that possible? Yes, it's possible. Somebody else would say, no, it's impossible. So find out yourself. We will end here for today.